Hey everyone, so a new OP pick has been on the rise in play rate as of late, especially from the GOAT himself, Faker. This pick is very easy to play, has a very strong lane phase, clear win conditions, and will only get better with the next patch since they are nerfing Seeker's arm guard yet again. The pick I'm going to break down for you today is Nocturne mid, and I'm going to use a bunch of recent games from Faker to do it. We're going to talk about runes, build, how to play it, and the small tips and tricks that you need to know to be successful. So let's get started with a quick rundown of his abilities, just in case you don't know them. Nocturne's abilities are fairly simple, but the really important one for mid lane is his passive. His passive is an AoE auto attack that does extra damage and restores health. The more targets he hits, the more health he gets. It has a cooldown of 14 seconds, but is reduced by 1 second if hitting minions and 3 seconds on champions. This ability is insane for pushing waves and gives so much sustain. His Q is a skill shot that does damage and gives him move speed and attack damage when he's on it. There are some small important things with this one though. First, if it hits a champion, they also leave the same trail behind them as they move. And second, Nocturne is ghosted on the trail, meaning that he can't be creep blocked. This is important for when you are trying to fight someone in waves. You should max this ability first, and we will talk more about this later. But his next ability is W, which is a spell shield, that also gives him a passive attack speed bonus. If he blocks something with his spell shield, that bonus is doubled. His E puts a tether on a champion, and if it doesn't break, they're feared. Nocturne also gets a huge move speed boost towards feared champions. Then his ult, most of you already know, but he reduces the vision radius of everyone on the enemy team and can cast it again to launch himself at them, doing a good amount of damage. This ability also has some tricks that we'll talk about later. For now, let's talk about how to lane using a few different examples. For this first one, Faker is playing against Katarina. Katarina has Ignite and Exhaust, while Faker only has Exhaust. We don't really recommend bringing Exhaust like Faker does, not because it's bad, but because it's much harder to use properly. You should take Ignite or TP depending on matchups. We will also talk about this more in depth in a bit. But Faker walks up to Katarina, uses Q, and chases her trying to get an auto attack off, but just barely couldn't get in range. If she tried to trade back, he would win very hard, and then he would just go back to his wave and heal it all up with his passive. Katarina plays it smart and doesn't trade with him, and doesn't even hit him with Q because she knows he will heal it with his passive auto. He's going to grab his last hits, then use Q on her when she walks up, then hit her with one auto. That's actually a lot of damage for just a Q and auto, especially without any AD from an item, as he's got corrupting potions. It's the bonus AD from the Q that gives him so much extra damage. Then he's going to make sure his passive auto hits all 3 of these minions to give him as much health back as possible. This is very important when playing Nocturne. Remember, it hits everything around him, not just in front, so you want to position yourself to hit as many minions as possible if you need the health. But now Faker is going to finish shoving this wave in and crash it on the tower. When he does that, he tries to hit Katarina and the CS with Q, as that's the most efficient use of it, and it's what you should try to do every time as well. Notice when Katarina is farming under tower, Faker is not throwing Q to poke her. This is an important part of playing Nocturne mid as well. Your Q isn't really a poke ability. It's one thing to use it to grab CS and poke at the same time, but if you throw it just for the poke, it would cost too much mana over time for how much damage it does. Also, he wants the wave to come back to him, so spamming Q would keep it pushing, where 2 things would be a problem. First, he can't do much to Katarina under tower, as you can see, and second, he has no mobility, so he can easily be ganked. Anyway, the wave is going to push back to him now, so when she walks up, he tries to hit her with a Q and an auto, but couldn't reach with that auto yet again. Then she's going to use Q and jump to the dagger, but with his passive auto, he heals up a good portion of the damage anyway. Then something big is going to happen. They're both going to hit level 3 here, and Katarina is going to immediately get aggressive, jumping on Faker with her E and W. The first thing he's going to do, because he's Faker, is use Q on the 2 low health minions. Most of us would use Q on Cat here to help trade, but Faker cares more about the CS and knows how to win this trade without the Q damage anyway. Then, he's going to walk forward away from the dagger and then start auto-attacking the cat, making sure to stand on the trail to give him extra AD. She uses Q and goes to jump to the next dagger. Now that she has at least 2 seconds before she can jump again, he uses E to tether and blocks the dagger damage with his W spell shield. Cat gets feared and is forced to pop Exhaust, or she would take way too much damage from Faker, so he backs off. So as you can see, even after using his Q on the wave, He outdamages Katarina very hard with how strong Nocturne's all-in is. She still has Ignite though, and Faker needs to heal up a bit, but the lane is in a very dangerous spot for both of them now, and what I mean by this is Katarina wants to finish shoving the wave so that she can recall, and Faker wants to stop that. Katarina has potions, as does Faker, but she has the minion advantage. So it comes down to who knows their limits more here, so let's see what happens. Katarina uses Q on the wave to try and clear it as quickly as possible, when Faker does what I was talking about earlier with the passive auto and runs into the middle of all the CS to use it. It gives him a huge chunk of health, and now things aren't as dangerous as they were a few seconds ago. Katarina jumps to this dagger now, getting greedy to clear the wave, and Faker immediately tethers her with E since she has 3 seconds before she can jump again. But Korean Challenger really is crazy because Katarina almost somehow had the damage to kill Faker here, but his exhaust was well timed and he had such a big health advantage that he got the kill. So this was just an example of a melee matchup and how Nocturne's sustain and all-in is extremely strong. Now let's look at a ranged one. Here we've got Faker versus Orianna. Ori has a lot of poke in lane and can be difficult for some melee champions. To start things off, Faker is coming into lane and immediately poked by Ori. He uses Q to grab CS and poke, then uses passive auto to grab this last hit. If Ori didn't have phase rush here, he would have went all in on her, but since she has it, he just grabbed the last hit instead. Then he's going to show us a perfect example of how to use that passive auto for sustain. He walks into the big wave and auto attacks, and it heals him for about 150 damage, as much as a potion or corrupting pot charge. That's insane for a 14-second cooldown. But then Faker is really going to outplay the hell out of this Ori. So he went pretty deep at level 1 to get the passive auto and also grabbed a CS while doing it. Ori is trying to push as hard as she can, so she's chasing and auto attacking. But she threw her Q again right here, and that's when Faker knows to go in. This is important against Ori as any champion though. If her E is down, and in this case not skilled up since she's level 2, she has no way of getting that ball back onto herself. So if she doesn't use Q here and Faker goes in, she can W herself to speed her up and slow Faker down, then continue kiting. But since she used Q and Faker is 1 CS from level 2, he turns around and goes in, hits her with Q, autos this minion to hit level 2, then immediately uses E on her. Because of Nocturne's very strong all-in, she's forced to flash here. She tried to return harass after and procs phase rush, so once it drops, Faker tries to Q and flash in to finish her, but he just barely gets tagged by Ori W and gets slowed, otherwise she was dead. But after that, he's going to finish shoving the wave and recall. Alright, so you now have a general idea of how to lane. Let's take a look at how to use his ultimate effectively. Generally, you'll want to use Nocturne's insane clear with his passive NQ to quickly push a wave, then start moving to a side lane whenever your ult is up. In low elo, players don't ward often, so your ult is a free kill pretty much every time. But we have a nice trick in this next one that you need to know. In this clip, a fight breaks out in mid and Faker wants to ult and kill Ori. What he does is super important for Nocturne. You can use your abilities while in mid-air, and remember Nocturne's Q gives him bonus AD. So, as he's about to hit Ori, he uses Q, which gives him the bonus AD, which makes his ult do about 50 damage more. That's an insane amount of extra damage. You should be doing this every time you ult someone, but his Q has a cast time, so you need to time it, taking that into consideration. In teamfights, your ult can be tricky as once you jump in, you can't really get out, so let's go over how to do it right. In this clip, Faker is coming from bot looking to teamfight in the enemy jungle. He uses Q and Stride Breaker to initiate onto Hecarim and use his E, but the rest of the enemy team arrives, so he starts running away. Then he uses his ult. This is the important part. He didn't use it because he wants to jump in. He used it because reducing everyone's vision is extremely strong in teamfights. The backline thinks he's about to jump in, so they won't go forward, and this lasts for 6 seconds. So you want to use it early on in fights. Then Faker uses the second part of his ult at the last second, jumping in onto Kai'Sa and easily kills her once she's feared. After that, he chases down the rest, flashing over the wall and uses Stride Breaker to catch Hecarim and aces the enemy team. Alright, so you now know how to play Nocturne. I'm going to quickly end the video with item build and runes so you can be on your way and get the free low before it's nerfed. For runes, the most standard page is this. Lethal Tempo has insane synergy with his E and W, letting you shred anyone in a 1v1. You can swap most of the secondary rune choices around to your liking, as Lethal Tempo is the most important one. For build, his core item is Stridebreaker, as it lets you stick to the enemy champ that you're tethered to very well so that you can get that fear off. And most of the time, if you get a fear off, then you win the 1v1. After Stridebreaker, you want Steric so you can dive into fights without dying, then a Guardian Angel third. This gives you some extra AD and makes it even harder to kill you after you dive in. After that, it becomes very situational. You can go Black Cleaver if they have armor, Randuin's if they have a lot of crit, Force of Nature if you need MR, and even Wits if you're really ahead. By the way, you should know where these videos come from. Our hyper improvement platform, SkillCapped, is by far the best place to be if you want to actually improve at League of Legends. You can input your rank before signing up to see where we think you'll climb to. If you don't reach that rank while actively using SkillCapped, you can claim a full refund. That's like a gym membership guaranteeing that you'll get ripped. We offer this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't, then you shouldn't pay for it. So be sure to check us out after this. Alright everyone, that's going to do it for now. We hope that you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.